listening to the Questionnaire.
Say that again.
You're listening to the Questionnaires.
I've just started.
Right here, for your ears, for your eyes.
The Questionnaire.
Get your comic on.
Poke it up, poke it up, poke it up, poke it up.
Every time it's like this. Every single time. Well, no. I mean, to be honest, it's happened before, right? But it is definitely not every single time. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the Questionnaire. I hope you've checked out every single time, at least part of it. You know, maybe not every single time. If you're like just starting, I mean, if you want to go back and watch everything, that's fine. If you want to keep it clean, just keep it on season 2. That's all I'm gonna say. You get into season 1, you're gonna hear some things, right? But season 2 has been going phenomenal. So many great quests that we've had, right? Right. You can check them all out. They're all there, real quick, real easy access, right? And you know, we started that co-host. Well, at least for most of the episodes, we've had co-hosts. There was a really dope one with Aletha. Yeah, Aletha Martinez, I highly recommend. But, you know, nobody showed up, right? And then there was this other, we're not going to get into that, right? But Scott, Wojcik, how you doing?
What's going on, guys?
Yeah. That's, it did, I realized something, and then I was like, I shouldn't. So, yeah, we're just going to get right into it, right? Because I got to pick this man's brain, Scott, right off the bat, right, about some Grimm things. And I know you're going to keep it PG, right, but we're going to get into some Grimm things. Yeah, with Frank Martin in the house. How you doing, man?
You put the pressure on with that intro.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now I'm going to have to deliver.
I hope everyone enjoys that intro and it sets up for what's going to happen here, Frank. Because I told you, man, I got to pick your mind about some Grimm things, right? I do.
Consider my mind ready to be picked.
Life was a little crazy today, and I unfortunately only was able to really get into one comic, which annoys me. But whatever, we won't talk about the fact of how many comics y'all have seen me hold up on this show that I probably haven't even read yet right now. But the one that I got to was Grimm Space, right? Which how do you pronounce, like, because you put P.I. Okio. So is it just
P1 Nokio?
P1 Nokio.
Yeah.
P1 Nokio. Okay. So, I mean, clearly that's a take on the Grimm Blaze too, right? And hold on. Can I say how much you've planned as far as in that?
Sure.
Okay, because you told me you plotted out 6 more issues.
More than that, kind of like 10.
Okay. So that's very intriguing, man, to put a classic Grimm tale like that. I can't think.
The weird thing about Pinocchio, though, is that it's not a Grimm's fairy tale. It's its own book. So I'm cheating a little bit.
So wait. Okay. So now my question is even more pertinent, and you're rude on starting with, not because I assume you have some Grimm tales that you're going to do along the same ilk?
Yes, some of them.
Are these all going to be in space? Do you intend to intertwine them at all? Let me say, in the long run of things, because it seems like you have a lot planned.
Yes. So they're all in space, but it's like Star Wars. So some of them can be obviously on planets and stuff, and they're all in the shared universe. So they all take place in the kind of the same continuity. Characters can cross over. There will be cameos, like story threads that start in one book and then be finished in another and stuff like that. So they're all standalone, though. So you can pick up any one and just start reading and be fine. But it's kind of like the MCU, that if you watch the whole thing or read the whole series, you can start to see a lot of the threads come together.
Was there something that intrigued you with doing it the way that you did, specifically with P1 Nokio?
It originally started with the first one, which was Jack and the Beanstalk, and so that's a Grimm's fairy tale, and the book was called Grimm Space, and it was always meant to be a one-shot. But I knew there was potential there, so I dropped little, I called them threads that I could tug on in future issues.
Yeah.
And one of those threads was P1 Nokia. So in the original Jack and the Beanstalk, he trades a cow to a guy in order to get the bean that would grow the beanstalk. I swapped out the cow for a robot named P1 Nokia. And I always knew that if I were to do I could do a spin-off with that. Like I could do Pinocchio's own story as like a follow-up to this one. But I never actually intended to do it. It wasn't until the book got picked up by a publisher and they kind of encouraged me to follow that, and they would put it out. So I was like, yeah, sure.
Right on.
No, wait. What? I swear I normally research at least a little better than this.
No, this is more fun. I like watching the gears turn.
Yeah.
I like watching it.
You know, funnily enough,
Man in movement.
funnily enough, I think you can technically see that on pretty much any episode of the questionnaire. Whatever you write in that, Scott, we're like,
Oh yeah.
you see me just like I'll be just chatting and just like, look, this is random. Hey, you know what? Here's a real specific crazy question that just popped. Like, what was that? It's like, I don't know, man.
No,
Wow.
I want to see how the sausage is made, man. I want to see the magic behind the curtain.
It's just how it works. You would be amazed. Like, what do you mean magic behind the curtain? This is the episode. Sometimes they get to hear me ramble a little. Are you saying I should
Exactly.
cut all this?
I don't want to see you do this like in the middle of the day, getting ready for the show. You got to get ready for the show during the show. That's how it works.
Hey,
So is there only 2 to Grimm Space right now? Or
Yeah,
is there-
so far, Jack and the Beanstalk, which I call Jack and the Nav Unit, and P1 Nokia have been released. And this will be, what's coming up in May, would be basically the straight follow-up to Jack and the Beanstalk. So it's a whole new story, and I'm planning a whole bunch of them next year. So I hope people like it.
That's amazing.
I appreciate it. Today I just put together like a launch schedule graphic. So it shows the first 2, and then it shows like the next 6 or 7 or so. And then I'm going to put that on the Kickstarter page, and hopefully for this next book, that will get people excited. Like say, hey, look, there's a lot more coming. This is going to be a big universe, and that might get them interested on the ground floor.
can you get into what other characters you have within this universe?
You could get into all of them.
Oh yeah. So
Actually, before this next launch, I decided to jump on the Steamboat Willie train. So I'm doing Spaceship Willie as a free comic book day digital short. So it's not like a full issue. It's going to be like 5 or 6 pages, but I'm doing my own little Grimm Space version of that. I guess as promo for the Kickstarter that's going to come up. That's number 1.
Cool. Like an ash
Next.
can.
Yeah. So after this next one, which is The Golden Bird, which is a lesser-known Grimm fairy tale, that's the one coming up in May. Next year, all 6 of my Kickstarter launches will be Grimm Space. 3 Little Pigs, Cinderella, The Monkey King from Chinese folklore. I'm going to do one focused on Captain Hook, and Anansi, which is the African spider trickster.
Whoa! Really? That's funny. I got to give Greg Alisi a shout out, and I hope I didn't butcher your last name, Greg. And Sean David
when I
Hill.
planned on using the character, I only knew him from other stories. Like he's in Gargoyles, and Neil Gaiman used him in American Gods, but I never read any of the actual tales that used him or that he was from. So I reached out to him. I reached out to Greg, and I asked him, "What do you recommend?" And he gave me recommended a book that was great that I used as like source material inspiration for that.
That's awesome that you actually reached out to him in regards to use that. That's all right.
Well, I know he uses the character and is very prominent. He's been successful with it, and I didn't want to wing it. I wanted to do the legwork to know where these characters are coming from. And so, 3 Little Pigs, easy. People are familiar with it. Captain Hook, again, easy. I've read Peter Pan. Monkey King was a little different. Again, I know him from other stuff, but I don't know any of his stuff. And I went nuts watching adaptations. There are so many adaptations of him. There's a cartoon show. There's like a Netflix show that kind of reminds me of like Hercules and Xena. It's kind of like that Monkey King, like that version of it. There's 3 Chinese movies I watched. There was a new Netflix movie that just came out, and I read the American translation of the novel, or I should say English translation of the novel. So I was all in on Monkey King, and it was That was very cool. But then the last one after Anansi is Wizard of Oz.
Right on.
That's a lot. That's not all of
well,
it. I could go on.
But so
Is
all
there
of
one
these-
that you find you like the more? One that you feel you put a little bit more heart into it?
You know, I think each one that I'm writing is like the one I'm enjoying a lot of. I can't wait. The only one I haven't really written yet is the Captain Hook one. And I'm looking forward to that because I'm watching a lot of Star Trek now. I never watched Star Trek growing up. I watched a lot of Star Wars. So that's why a lot of the stories look very Star Wars-y. I'm sure you could tell that with P1 It's more Star Wars than Star Trek. But for Captain Hook, I'm going to do Star Trek. I'm going to portray Captain Hook as like a captain on a starship. And I'm looking forward to writing that. I haven't even scripted that one yet. So it's going to be fun.
Do you have plans? Like, let's say, best case scenario, or well, let me take that back. Let's not even say best case scenario. Let's say the books, they do well, they do well, right? In that instance, do you have thoughts of taking them beyond this? Because obviously with that cast of characters, there's so many different things that you could do. And you could also very much get it convoluted to the point where people probably should have read the back issues, I would think. I mean, you could ostensibly line like events that are events. So like, I mean, maybe not. Well, yeah, you could do pretty much Marvel size, really, if you're just reaching into characters to that degree. You know
So
what I mean?
you're talking about how heavily I will lean into continuity to tell future stories.
No, just how
Is that your
heavily-
question?
No, just how heavily. I don't care about that. I want to know how
But
heavily.
I'm trying to formulate
Fair
how to
all
answer your question.
Hey,
in my
look,
brain.
it's the unknown factor
All right,
for a
how about
reason.
I
dude.
just
It's not
how about
intentional.
I say what I
But-
think is an answer, and you tell me
No,
if it
no.
works.
Let me flip the phrase real quick, right? What I mean is, how much do you intend to let these characters truly intertwine?
All right, I'll tell you exactly how much. So, in Three Little Pigs, I'm doing a Sherlock Holmes character. She's called Shelley Holmes. She shows up in Three Little Pigs. She will then be the main character in Cinderella. In Cinderella, there will be characters will show up at the ball that you will see in future issues. Then Captain Hook is actually the boss of Shelley Holmes. So you'll see him at some point. And what I'm doing is a lot of these are one-shots. They introduce characters that kind of intertwine, kind of like Marvel. And then the Wizard of Oz at the end will be my Avengers, where they kind of all cross over. They all come together for the Wizard of Oz story. Did that answer the question?
It did. It very much answered as well. Yeah, that you're pretty much doing. But it's interesting you're doing it like that, and you intend to just name, like so it's ostensibly more you're introducing the Wizard of Oz, the Wizard of Oz already have been introduced by the time you get.
I'm not going to answer that. That's
Okay, well, fair enough, man. I was
Let's
curious.
gotta leave some sort of surprise.
I get that, man. If you want to leave some things out,
I know exactly what I'm doing, but I mean that's the fun of it, though. How is Wizard of Oz going to come into play into this? How do you adapt Three Little Pigs for space? And not a lot of these are not straight adaptations. For instance, my Three Little Pigs one, which is the first one of that sequence that will be in January, it's actually a sequel to the Three Little Pigs story. So in the crew of the Beanstalk, which is from the first issue, there's a character named Zeke. He's my Big Bad Wolf character. So he will have to reckon with the events of Three Little Pigs happened in his past. So he will have to go back to the place that Three Little Pigs took place. And it's like a sequel to the Three Little Pigs. So I'm not just doing straight adaptations. I'm kind of like spinning it and doing different things, sequels, prequels maybe, or different takes on things. I'm having a good time with it.
What makes you decide to do this in this way, as far as to use, you know what I'm saying? Use Peter Pan or use Hook, use characters to that ilk.
It's a combination of things, like what property to use. I love Peter Pan. I'm a huge fan of Peter Pan, so I wanted to do that. However, I'm not a huge fan of Cinderella, but in order to take Cinderella and try to turn it into this universe, it poses a challenge that I find intriguing and exciting. I like the challenge of it all. And another part of that challenge was I was looking at the stories that I was doing, Jack and the Beanstalk, Pinocchio, I was going to do Captain Hook, and they're all kind of like European-based Grimm fairy tales. That's where, and I didn't want to get stuck in that realm. So again, I challenged myself to look for other places, and I did. I got Monkey King from China and a Nazi from Africa. I'm trying to like not just like get myself into a box with what types of stories I'm adapting and what I'm not.
Well, based on what you're doing, I mean, like I said, if you find success, which hopefully you do, man. What I've read was very I really I'm like there was a book before P and like you should have sent me Jack and the Beanstalk, man. So now I'm just intrigued by it.
I know I want to read it too.
Yeah, I'm just intrigued by the process of the universe building. But I think that's something that's always fascinating, and people don't understand how much you have to structure it to really build it. So I'm curious if it gets to that point, though. Like, do you, if let's say it's really successful, and you get to that point in the story, is there part of you that would then want to continue that story and bring in other characters? Because I mean, if you just want, you could. I want to know how long you can go for, with characters to that ilk. I mean, you ain't even gotten into the horror side of things, and so I mean,
I'm doing it very slowly, and I'm not looking at in terms of big picture things. So let's say if I started with issue number 1 and I'm doing a long-term story that goes to 20 issues or 25 issues, each one is like a subsequent story. It's following a narrative, whereas every Grimm Space launch, every Grimm Space book is a brand new project. I'm starting from scratch. It's an isolated story that anybody can pick up and anybody can read that ties into something bigger. So it's not really like I'm going straight forward and have this story. I could bounce around and do different things, and it provides me the freedom to take my time or go as fast as I want.
well, you said you've already scripted everything, but
Captain Hook.
The Captain Hook,
right?
But I mean, that's just up to now. I have
no, that's
plot.
fine. That's just I need to know based off that. What? How do you do that with the Wizard of Oz, knowing you have all of these characters within there to make sure people are aware? Or are you just relying on the fact
They're all plotted out. I plot issues before I script them.
Yeah.
So I know the story all the way up to in the future, but I don't need to script all the way up to there. I can bounce around. And the reason I did was I've actually scripted Wizard of Oz before I did Captain Hook. And the reason I was able to do that is not the reason, but the reason I did do that is because it's a longer story. It's going to take longer to produce. So I wanted to get the artist started sooner. So a lot of this is practical, logistical decisions too. It's not all creative.
How long have you been working on this?
I decided to devote all 6 launches to Grimm Space last year, like early last year.
Yeah.
So when I describe being a comic creator as being like Dr. Manhattan, is that you experience all time at the same time. I'm releasing something now, but I'm lettering something that's due later in the year, and then I'm getting art for something that's due next year, and I'm scripting something later that year. So I'm constantly living in the future of what needs to happen, and it's a lot, but it's fun.
And you said that the Jack and the Beanstalk and P1, oh well, it's not Jack and the Beanstalk.
Jack and the Nav Unit.
Yeah, the Nav Unit. Those two, you said that they're published?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Through what company?
Scout Comics put them out.
Scout Comics. And tell us about that whole thing. Like, how did that come to be? Yeah.
So, I was primarily a Kickstarter creator at the time before I got hooked up with Scout, and I was putting out books, and I was working with an artist. And Grimm Space, like I said, was just going to be a one-shot. It was just, I had this idea, Jack and the Beanstalk in space. I see potential to expand the universe, and let's make this story. And then what I do with my books after I kickstart them is then I submit them to publishers. It's not like the end all be all, but if they do accept it, great. It gets to go into comic book stores, and the book has a little bit of life after Kickstarter. Scout accepted it, and then that's when they broached the subject about, like, we do see the potential for this. I'm sure you do too. Do you want to continue it? And I said, absolutely. Let me start planning. And I worked with an editor over there, and the rest kind of, that's how Pinocchio came about. And I slowly was like, all right, let me do one. And I said, maybe I'll do one a year. And a lot of if you look at a lot of the work I put out, it's all over the map. I have a whole bunch of one shots, different titles, not really a whole lot of long series. And I wanted to do something different. I wanted to show people I'm capable of long form storytelling. And so I decided Grimm Space has the potential. It's like I could do one shots, but do a long form story. And so that's what I really wanted to focus down on. It's also got great market appeal, I think. Not a lot of my books have market appeal. I've written crazy dark stories that have very niche markets that people I write them for myself, not for other people.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And so I think I do that for Grimm Space too, but it's something a lot of people can be into.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that most of us writers do, right? We write what we love, and in hopes that someone else is going to love them, right?
Yeah. So I've kind of chased my own writing itches for long enough. I think I want to spend a little time building something that people can, like, rally behind.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's understandable, man. But I mean, obviously, you did it initially just because you wanted to with the Jack and the Beanstalk. I mean, do you think there could reach a point where you would be like, I've done enough of this?
If it exists, I can't see it right now.
That's always excellent.
I like the concept. It's my heart is behind it. I'm not at the point yet where I'm like, I'm bleeding this thing dry. There are so many stories that I could give this spin to, and so much that I feel I could do. And you know what? As long as I'm having fun with it, that's really fun.
Yeah.
Well, real quick,
Yeah.
like I said, for everybody watching, man, you've been able to check the cover of this, but if you look right now, and I'm gonna interchange, but hopefully I remember to do this at this point, and it's edited properly. Like right now, you can see some of the other covers that he's done for some of the comics, and yeah. Hey Frank, most of that don't look kid friendly.
Yeah. Oh, my other books?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. It's not a lot. You know what? That's before I did Grimm Space. Grimm Space was my first book that I was kind of like, here, kid, you can read this thing. And so when I would table at conventions, and I talk about this with creators all the time, and they see like a family with like a 3-year-old walking by, it's kind of like, I'm not even going to talk to these people. I got nothing for them. But I feel good now that I have actual books on my table that can appeal to so many different people. And so yes, I've written stuff that's super dark, that it could be super raunchy, that no child should ever read. And but I'm also going to release a book later this year that's based on my family that's all about farts. So I'm just having a good time. It doesn't matter. I don't write to a demographic. I write to entertain myself.
I love it. It's about farts. I need to know a little bit more about this book.
So what happened was, we're sitting in the den right here, and my son had a pull-up on at the time because he was, I guess, wetting the bed, and he farted, and he kind of like jumped as he farted, and it exploded out of his pull-up, and he called it his fart bomb. And then I decided to write a story about a kid who develops a fart bomb and terrorizes his family with it. And that's a real all ages book. So that's like, but I consider it all ages because as I was writing it, I was laughing hysterically. So I think adults will get a kick out of it too. It's not like a kiddie book.
When you release that, you should come back on. We should talk about that. I promise I'll, read it before you come on. Leave me alone, man.
That's it's almost done. I love getting the artwork for this because it's so funny. Just the art by itself is hilarious, and I show it to my family because it's based on my family. So it's me, my wife, my son, my two sons, and my daughter, and it's I can't wait till people read it.
But
I don't know how well it's that. Again, I write books because they're funny and they're cool, but I have no idea how well that's going to do on Kickstarter.
How have
Do your kids
Oh,
jump
go
in?
ahead.
Yeah. Do your kids jump in on helping you come up with ideas?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. I use them a lot for inspiration. My first book that I launched this year was a horror spin on Where the Wild Things Are, called Where the Nightmares Are.
That was the one I didn't get to read.
That was an all ages book, and the main character in that is solidly based on my daughter. So, they definitely serve as a good source of inspiration for stories.
Great.
Man, I forgot the question that I had on my tongue.
Yes, the answer is yes.
And-
Absolutely. I have done that from time to time. Not all the time, but it has crossed my mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. You should very much have things crossing your mind as a writer. I think that's important. But in reference to what we're talking about here, what's the time frame as far as you releasing that?
Well, so I do 6 launches a year. The first one was Where the Nightmares Are. Then I did a superhero book called Phenom. The third one will be Grimm Space. And then the Fart Bomb will be one of the remaining 3. So it's coming out this year. Probably the last one, which would be November.
See, and now to get back to the question that I actually had, what's been your experience on Kickstarter? Because I've heard, we've had a lot of people on here that run Kickstarters. I think a lot of people have varying success. One point that I've always heard about Kickstarter, though, is if a particular kind of cover will get you kickstarted, if you know what I mean.
Sure. Maybe. The answer is maybe. It will help you. It's not a done deal. There's a lot of other factors that are involved. So, it's not my bag, baby. It's just it's not what I want to do. I don't shy away from the subject material. I have a book out that's called Sex Night, and this is how smart of a marketer I am. I put a book out called Sex Night with no nudity. So but there was a reason for that, is because I had a story to tell and I didn't want to distract from that story, and I thought that nudity would have done that, but that's the type of books that I put out. And if somebody else wants to put out something else to, the way I view it, there's 2 ways to go about it. You could do it just for the sake of doing it, or you could do it as a consequence of the story that you're willing to tell. And I think you could tell the difference between those 2 types of books.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
It's a very, very excellent answer, man. Dude, I'm gonna I want a story about farts. That's just.
Yeah, I write stories about sex and stories about farts, and and other fun stuff.
I mean, at least you go all
like
over.
alcoholism.
And
imposter syndrome. Yeah, I'm all over the map.
Well, that's like your 3 wishes, man. I've never had anyone just be like, give me this, and then just casually throw off the other 2 as like world peace and solving hunger, which I thought was funny that you were kind of casual about it. Like, well, just, do that because I don't need it because the money gives me everything. But it was, like I said, it was very casually written, not like, most people are like, solve world hunger, and make people stop killing one another because that'd be cool. You were so casual. And infinite money. You really think infinite money covers everything you would ever need, though?
Not everything I would ever need. So you know what it is? I am happy with my family. So I have my kids, I got my wife. Infinite money will allow me to make as many comics as I want. It will allow us to take as many vacations as we want. And food is covered. So it's like I have the happiness part down. I just need the things that facilitate the happiness part. I don't need to buy happiness, is what I'm saying. I want to buy the things around my happiness.
I think infinite money would probably cause you more trouble than it was ever worth in the long run of things. The second somebody found out you had it, though.
You know, money doesn't cause the problems. Spending the money causes the problems. So, like, it depends on what you spend it on. You know, you don't have to buy 5,000 cars. You don't have to buy this house.
Are you saying you're not going to buy a house outright? You're like going to go and get a mortgage proper and then like
No. I mean, you can buy a house outright, but you don't have to live in a gigantic house. You can live in a regular house.
Yeah.
So they've done studies about this where they said, yes, money can buy happiness up to a certain degree. Once you hit a certain level, money won't provide any more of the joy in your life. So, yeah, there's a threshold that you can hit where if you have enough money, you're good.
Why do you think we ain't going to get into that whole discussion?
So this is from the questionnaire. I don't even remember filling it out. It was a long time ago. But I stand by that answer.
I actually have questions, unless Jay, you got something. But
I mean, I was just going to say, fair enough.
Hit me with them.
Yeah,
All of them. I'll justify all these answers that I don't remember writing.
Hospice.
Sure.
I'm curious about hospice.
So hospice, my good buddy Travis approached me one day and said, I have this idea for this weird hospice that takes in terrible people that have demons growing in them. And I want to turn this into a universe. And do you want to be a part of it? And I said, absolutely. And he brought in a couple other creators, and we all took that premise and made our own books that use the same premise. They take place in the same universe, but we all ran our own campaigns. We wrote our own stories. We met to kind of corroborate on how we were gonna like run our campaigns and rewards and stuff like that, marketing. But for the most part, we wrote our own stories. And what I did was I took that idea and I merged it with an idea I did have about a cannibal serial killer in the Catskills of New York. So he was my bad guy. I made him super fat, and he eats people, and he goes into this hospice that takes in terrible people, and he wants them to feed him. So that's where kind of the story takes off.
It was really interesting. Is there only just the one issue, or is there actually more to?
For me, that's my one issue. We've been talking about how we're going to expand the universe or keep it going or what we're going to do. I would love to revisit the my hospice characters, but there are also all the other campaigns. I think there were 6 of us. So there are 5 other stories within this same universe that have the same premise and the same brand of hospice. So if people are interested in it, they can check them out.
Very cool.
I'm curious, man, looking through everything you've done that I've had some portion to take a look at. It looks like you're inspired by a lot of different things as a writer. I mean, up to and including your family.
Or I do a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Man, this is a PG show.
He's talking Advil. Come
Yeah.
Did you take your aspirin before you give me a headache? But no, I'm just curious. What do you find inspire that inspires you the most? Or how do you know that something is a moment where you're like, oh, I should do something with that, or in some capacity, from anything from the Jack and the Beanstalk to your family farting,
I don't know. I really don't know. Like, where does inspiration come from? It comes from life. It just comes from living and thinking, asking stupid questions,
Yeah.
That's where a lot of it comes from, just from thinking up weird, silly things, challenging myself, and then stories kind of form around those weird thoughts. And I have a lot of them. I have friends that I just send out story ideas to because I just don't want to be the only one who's thought of this and forgot about it. Like, so I have friends that I send ideas to. They laugh at it with me, and then that's it. So, yeah, it has to come naturally. I think if you try to force inspiration, readers feel that.
Yeah. Sound familiar, Jay?
Oh, as far as I had that thought when he said that statement.
Yeah.
That's why when you were on, like I said, I was having a hard. Dude, you ought to see me trying to question Scott, right? Because no, dude, look, because we have conversations like that are not part of the show of doing things in relation to comics and stories and this and that and things he's working on and like things that are in the mix and like I'm in the mix of a little bit. And so when you get to it'd be like if I had seen all your scripts ostensibly and then I'd, ask you a question that you were like, I wasn't trying to tell that yet. I was like that's not coming out for like 6 months, dude. I'm gonna like what is
It was pretty
Party
funny,
foul.
Yeah.
It's Bush League.
I did look. I didn't. I had to just if y'all watch that episode, just the point where Dave's like, "What, man? Did you lose?" And I'm like, "No, hold on. I'm trying to figure out how to formulate this question without." And then Scott was like, "Man, you'll be fine." And then I ask it, and then he's like, "Oh." I was like, "Yeah." So it took me a second. All right, it took me a second because it was difficult, but well, I mean, it looks like you're inspired from a lot just beyond life, though, man. I mean, you can see obvious inspirations from Grimm, um, and I feel like in Cabin 818, which I've only got a chance to browse, I feel like there's a touch of Evil Dead there.
A little bit. Maybe that might have been subconscious or unintentional. But the cabin, yeah, weird crap happening in the cabin. That is a lot. It was I had on my mind a lot of 1408, the Stephen King short story that became the movie with John Cusack. That was a lot in there. But it follows that same vein, that same kind of concept of haunted house, kind of haunted room.
There's
Guy being troubled.
There's a part of me that Brad, and like I said, I did not get a full chance to read it. My apologies. And but just give it to it's just the first thing. Maybe it's just because I love the Evil Dead too, so that might be like completely my fault. And that's why I love like everything is inspired by something. I was just wondering what personal thoughts you had in it as far as what you actively did. You know what I mean?
You know what it is? I consume a lot of things. I watch a lot of TV. I watch a lot of movies. I read a lot of books. I read every issue of National Geographic cover to cover, so I'm constantly bombarded with exposed to a whole bunch of different stuff, and ideas come from everything. So I just feel like I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I feel like the more things I have swirling around this soup of a brain, the more things collide with one another, and that's how stories are born.
Yeah.
Well, if you're listening to podcasts, I always recommend the questionnaire.
But
Yeah,
Especially
just
my
saying.
episode.
I like to think the show's okay sometimes. Sometimes it goes off the rails, but we typically do manage to bring it back, right? So, this man, what got you doing comics in the first place, Frank? Why? Why didn't you just write books like a normal person? Why
I
did
do
you
that too, man.
Oh, you write books too? Well, never mind.
I'm not a really writer. I call myself a storyteller. So the medium is what fascinates me. Doesn't matter what it is. I love trying to find new ways to tell stories. Comic books is one of those ways. I've written screenplays. Poetry is another one. I want to write a radio play or a stage play or a musical. It doesn't matter what it is. I just want to give it a shot. I might not do it forever. I might just do it once to kind of see what it is. I really love comics, so I stick with it. But the challenge of telling stories is what gets me up in the morning.
So when you first started, when was the first time you started writing? Like when you knew that that's what you wanted to do?
The earliest memory I have, and this is the answer I give, is like, you know, in elementary school, your teacher says, everybody write a little short story. And they force you to write a creative story. That's like my first time remember writing a story. And I just pretty much never stopped. I enjoyed it. I went home and I thought of new stories and I started writing those. As I started watching cartoons and playing video games and liking those characters, I eventually wrote stories for them. Fan fiction, that's kind of how I really grew into a writer and writing my own stories. I have a ton of fan fiction online. And then I started writing my own original stories that were kind of longer form stuff. It was really just like kind of on a whim. I did it because I had stories and I wanted to get them out, so I wrote them.
Yeah.
But there wasn't any real purpose to them. It wasn't until my first son was born that I was finally like, you know what? I like doing this thing. Let me see if other people like this thing that I do. So I decided to write a full-length novel that's still unpublished. Yay. But I got it done, and then that's what led me to continually put my work out into the world and have people read it and tell me how awful it is.
Speaking of IP, is there, let's say you got thrown anything from the two big guys. What would you want to work on?
Characters?
Yeah.
Oh, anything. I like B characters or C characters at this point, at least, you know. People say I would love to write Batman. No, you wouldn't. You would get Batman and then you would immediately have a panic attack, not knowing what the hell to do, and that everybody is going to rip you apart for being terrible. Spider-Man is my Mount Everest, but before anybody who decides to climb Mount Everest, who's never climbed before, will die. So
Yeah.
you got to start small. And I would love to do like a man thing. Man, I love like side characters. You know, one of my favorite characters growing up was named Gravity. He like was in 2 series. He was terrible, but he like grew on me. And I would love to bring him back and write a story about him for Marvel. And so I'd like to focus on some of those guys. Give those guys like room to shine and flesh out.
Yeah.
The challenge of it, you know, the challenge to take them and to make people like them.
Yep.
That's intriguing because I mean I think you are right as far as if you're like starting on like Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, one of the, you know, like getting that's getting thrown to the wolves at a pretty harsh level because yeah, there's so many things. I mean, it's not to say it's not possible for somebody to jump in and do it, but I understand it, and I think it's also more interesting is within that you get an instant fan base if you're writing one of those books, which I mean will instantly get you more attention. If people like your stuff, they're going to like it. What you're referring to doing is taking a lower character. I think is showing that you like a more difficult task when it comes to writing, because yeah, you know what I mean. Because you're gonna have it's just gonna be more difficult to make it to where people really are like yes about that character, especially within one of those 2 universes. If it's a very like B, D, C list character.
There are varying degrees of difficulty. And
Sure.
so look, if somebody said, Frank, we're putting you on Spider-Man tomorrow, I'd be like, great. I've got my 100-issue run ready to go. It's like, so every writer that dreams of writing those characters knows what they want to do. They've plotted them out. They've thought about it a million times, but it doesn't make it any less daunting. You know, it's still, I'm watching Zeb Wells on Twitter get torn apart for his Spider-Man run. Regardless of what you think of it, it's just, it's brutal what people say about him and his editor. So I as much as I want it, I kind of would be a little scared of it.
Yeah, and I think no matter what, you're always going to have that, right? It doesn't matter who you are. You're going to have your haters. You're going to have some people that love your stuff, especially with those characters, right?
I would become a hermit for like just a couple months while that stuff is coming out, and then I'll re-enter society. Hey guys, what did you think of it? You know, once it's all done.
I mean, yeah, and yeah, I mean, people. It doesn't matter what level you get to within anything. With the modern days of the internet, there, you know, I think I think I've seen it in a couple movies actually, where they're like, "Don't read the Wreck-It Ralph," or no, it's might be the sequel.
Yeah, no, it was the sequel when he put his videos up And
Yeah.
we read all the comments.
And then it's
everybody
like,
was
don't read
making
the
fun of
comment. Yeah. Yeah, it don't matter. It's gonna happen. It's the internet. And when when you put that many people thinking individually on a platform, I mean, it's gonna happen, unfortunately. I think it's something that just, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything's a failure, obviously, because
No, I'm very critical of social media and internet activity. So I try to be very cautious and aware of it.
meaning,
And I think you have to.
Meaning, so recently I was big on Twitter and Facebook. A lot of people in my position are, and Instagram. We feel like we have to be on social media all the time. I'm sure you know. And it's a relationship with it that it feels like a necessary evil, where you don't really want to do it, but you kind of have to do it. And I got to the point where I was kind of like, I'm not getting as much out of this as I put in, and I wanted to stop doing it. I need to form a more healthy relationship with it. So in 2024, I decided to really severely cut back on kind of those big platforms, and I really just stick to Discord primarily. I mean, I've learned in the first couple months of this year that it's impossible for me not to physically go on Facebook and Twitter, simply because I message people. It's just sometimes there's networking that I just have to do. So I've grown a more stable relationship of not going on it as much. But I just think humans weren't meant to just be on social media and scroll like that and communicate like that. We didn't evolve like that. And I feel like social interactions like this are a lot better. So I've been trying to promote this a lot more. One of my goals for this year is to be on a different show or podcast or live stream every week, in addition to having my own show. So I'm doing this a lot more than doing this.
I get it, man. Look, this is why, and Scott can attest, and I know it annoys some people. Like, I send a lot of voice messages. I don't even like to type that. It's just like
I was thinking about that earlier, because I typed you out a message and you sent me a voice message, and I'm not a huge fan of it. But you know what? Do you, man? If that's the best way you communicate, who am I to tell you what not to do?
Look, man. It's my whole opinion is I know how long worded I am, and I know, and like so look. I don't want to type out what's in my head. I don't. It's just a billion times easier just click. All right.
If that's your form of communication, if that's what makes you happy, I write a lot of articles for like social, like media commentary and reviews and stuff. They're all voice to text. I don't want to type those things. It's just it's a lot easier just to blah 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 blah. But so
edit done.
That's See, you made me think, because wasn't it? You said you used to write for Screen Rant, right?
I did. I worked for Screen Rant, and Dual Shockers was another Valnet video game site. And right now, my main site, I write for comiccon.com. And I just it's awesome. I get to watch movies and then wake up in the morning and write a quick article about what I thought of it.
How did you get into that, as far as from what else you were doing?
I was looking for other means to I guess expand revenue streams, other things that I could do to write but stay within the same sphere of media, pop culture, and entertainment. And media analysis is one of those things. I think I know a lot about storytelling and I have a lot to say, so I kind of pursued those avenues.
Do you feel, well, it kind of makes me wonder if I've ever, how long ago did you work for Screen Rant?
2 years ago, maybe.
It makes me wonder if I've ever read any of your articles and just wasn't aware of it. I want to point out.
You can write Frank Martin, Screen Rant. They're all pop up. I did not leave on good terms with them, so not huge fan at the moment. But my articles are still up there.
Noted. All right, no more Screen Rant talk. Fine.
Hey, no secrets. Open book here.
Oh no! Look, I mean, it happens in businesses like that. I think it's unfortunate, but I think it's
they churn out a lot of writers. They do. It's not they're not known for retention.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a company that would be, to be sincere. It seems like like with what they are. Like look, man, I'm pretty sure because they got bullet points on most of them, right?
That's new.
And
That like just started as I
oh,
was
really?
leaving.
Yeah, because I'm pretty well good reading the bullet points with most anything I go to on Screen Rant. I'm like,
They are, I mean, those are AI formulated bullet points. So they're pushing the envelope with AI generated content, and they're drawing quite a lot of controversy.
well, I'm just not gonna look at Screen Rant anymore.
Yes.
Jeez, Frank, way to get it, make it dark and political.
Like, for real, man. We've gotten into AI enough on this show, like, it's an opinion that I'm pretty sure is just a shared opinion pretty much across the board of pretty much everyone that's ever been on the show.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say everyone, but I don't even know that I know the opinions of everyone that's ever been on the show in regards to AI, but it's obviously based on when the show started and what was happening in that moment. It quickly became a conversation that's been had with many people. So, what's your overall opinion of, or what's your opinion of AI art and AI overall?
I have opinions that a lot of people don't agree with, which is I don't really care, to be honest with you. I don't use AI art. I understand the ethical concerns that a lot of people have. It would be the only thing that I would do it for is I write a lot of short stories and I publish them to my audience, and coming up with covers for those is a pain in the butt. And I don't want to commission covers. I make them myself using stock imagery and stuff. So just having an AI create a cover for that would be quick and easy. I don't, but that's kind of how I would see myself using it in the future.
You
As far as
don't?
AI writing, everyone says they're concerned about AI writers taking, I guess, writing stories for people. And I'm kind of like, I don't write stories for people to begin with. So I write stories for myself. I don't think an AI can really recreate what I do. And that is basically writing a story for me. Because if you say, like, what's a Frank Martin story? I don't know what a Frank Martin story is before I write it. So I would be interested to just pump all of my stuff into an algorithm and see what it generates. So, I mean, I'm just going to do me, man. And if people want to read an AI instead of me, I wasn't that interested in getting them to read it to begin with.
Okay, but think about this in regards to what you just said. If they start using AI to generate content like that, then sure, there's a lot of forms that it might not replace because it's just not capable of getting to the level to. But you know what? It could sure write a movie review or a review of music or this or that, and so many things that you would lose the human element of if it's written purely by.
So in regard, I mean, we could go piece by piece. In regards to a movie review, it's not really going to be a review at that point. It's just in a movie, I don't know, breakdown. If I read a movie review, it's because I want to know that reviewer's opinion. And an AI generated movie review, it's not a real opinion. It's just spitting out an opinion based on everything on the internet. Why would I want that? That doesn't make any sense. What was the second thing?
Just reviews of several types. I mean, there's a lot of things that could
There's
replace it.
there's a lot of applications for it. Look, I think technical writing could be done by an AI, which would put a whole bunch of technical writers out of business, and that would be hard. But it's what they do. Is there an element of creativity to it? I don't know. I just, looking at it, if I was a business and I said I just need this technical manual written up, it's cost effective for them to do it. I mean, it's the ethics of it aside, it just, I don't know. There's a lot of questions. I don't want to think. I'd rather write stupid stories about farts than answer these hard questions.
Have you ever used it for like research or anything?
I have occasionally. I was writing articles about Lego, and I was getting I was asking questions that I couldn't get easily from a Google search. I was using it for that. But look, the AI has been shown to lie on a frequent basis. So it's kind of like, how can you trust those answers? As an experiment, I actually wrote a short story using AI, and I just wanted to see if I could use ChatGPT to write a story. And I have it it's on my website. I think it's my lead magnet. So if you sign up for my mailing list on my website, you'll get the story. And the premise of it is it's essentially a robot. And it's not a revolution, but basically it's kind of like the Matrix in that people had decided to confiscate all the robots, right? So a guy is telling the story about his robot being confiscated, and then he gets letters from his robot. And those letters I wrote using ChatGPT. I tried to put in a prompt and actually spit something out. So it was a hybrid of my own writing and the ChatGPT letters that came out. And it was so difficult to do. I was like, I might as well just write this stupid thing myself. It was not, the technology is not conducive to creativity. As a writer, you want the story to go in a specific direction, and it's extremely hard to make it do that. So you would basically have to sit back and let it just write the story itself, in which case it's I don't want to do that. So I don't see it being used in a creative fashion. If you were interested, you could read the story and see what I did. But it was an experiment. Like I said, I like the challenge of storytelling, so that's why I did it. But at this point, I don't see it being used. People do use it. They tell me I use it for plotting out. I'm like, okay, whatever. But I don't use it at all at this point. It's, you know what it is? It's a toy. That's how I view it. It's like a gimmick. You write in, I want to hear Eminem write a Charles Dickens novel, write a rap about Charles Dickens. So seeing that is cool and fun, but any real use to it? No, not really.
That makes me wonder what percentage of that South Park episode, the one where they apparently used Chat GPT in. I want to know what percentage of it was. I think it was Matt Stone was the other, because only one of them wrote it. It was him and Chat GPT. I want to know what percentage of what was scripted by what. I'm kind of curious now.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
You know what? Really, even more than its application, the technology itself fascinates me. I've listened to a couple podcasts about it, and its birth, its evolution, and how it works and why it does what it does. It's fascinating stuff. That's far more interesting than it being used for in our everyday life. So
I still think that Alan Henry had it best when he said it, that if there's anything we should really use AI to replace, it's CEOs.
I mean, that is what they kind of do. They analyze and they make decisions. So yeah, why?
Yeah.
Technically. Honestly, I don't want to get political, but the way things are going, I just say let robots run it all. As far as I'm concerned, just put them in charge. Just let them make the decisions.
No. No.
That'll happen.
No.
It'll happen in 2029. Judgment Day.
R2D2 would be the best president ever. He would run a tight ship. He would balance the budget.
Can we put some hair on him too?
That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
He comes out with a different toupee every day.
Yeah. Sometimes like this.
I don't know what happened, but things have gone.
You asked me about AI, and somehow we got to R2D2 for president.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the lines, that my answer led to that.
I don't know. I can't. I don't know if I can agree for it. Even R2D2, man. No robot is president. I'm sorry, just can't do it, man. You cannot do it. You cannot do it. I cannot. No. What is wrong with you, Frank? Robots run the world. I'm not saying that we as humans are, we could obviously do a whole lot better. That's a whole really deep discussion we ain't gonna get into. But robots, Frank, you really Man, you really, nah, man. I don't trust something. You know why? Because they will go purely off of logic and reason, and that is kind of terrifying if you really think about it in the long run of things.
You learned nothing from P1 Nokia?
I had like 5 or 10 pages left. All right.
At the end, you realized he was the real boy all along.
This ain't sci-fi, right? This is
God
the
is.
this
There's
is
crazy stuff out there.
this is the real world. This ain't 616. This ain't Earth
This is the
1.
real world,
This
Lady. You
ain't
can't go shooting people
this.
on a whim.
We don't. Well, I mean, no. Unfortunately, that's what happens in the real world. All right,
That's
people
true.
people
That
shoot
is
one
true.
another on a whim. What are you talking about? All right, but we're not trying to get into that. All I'm saying is, man, look, I'm done with this conversation. It's gone. It's gone dry. And spots that I didn't mean for it too, and I was just trying to ask about freaking AI art, and you all of a sudden want R2D2 as president. Who's, who's, who's
So I saw on your list you named The Sandlot as your favorite.
Yeah, I was a baseball guy, and that came out at the right time for kids who love baseball. It was just, it's like that movie. I don't know. Does that movie have a plot, or they're just like eventually? I mean, they lost the ball and they had to get it, but it's just like kids having fun. I mean, I don't know how could you
And
not love that.
And I think we can all relate to it, right? You know, whether it's baseball or soccer or football or whatever it is, we're all with our friends and all having fun.
Yeah, it's summertime.
Yeah.
Barbecues, fairs, adventure. You know, it's just so I really dug it.
a dog that you think behind a cage you think might kill you?
Yeah.
I always like that feature. Yeah, I just thought it was. Yeah, I just thought it was.
We are creatures of nostalgia, and that movie was about building nostalgia. You know, what was what's his name? Do you remember that summer when Benny put on the Flyers and he ran after that dog? The dog ran after him. It's like they're forming memories that they're going to carry through for their whole lives, and I think that's the part that really resonates with us, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed, man. I want to. All I know is after you saying you want robots to run the world. Look, you can go hang with the Pokemon, man. But I want to point out you go with the manga universe, man. We ain't putting you in that. This is PG over here now, but I'm gonna put you in the manga universe and have you ever read the Pokemon mangas?
No, I'm thinking of
No.
like Detective Pikachu. That's that's where I'm going.
No.
That's the most live action Pokemon I know.
No, you're going to the comic book one. You're going to the most comic book. What do you didn't think you were going to the most comic book version of this world? I said comic book.
So all right, so what happens? What do they do?
I
What's so
mean,
bad?
look, I've never read it, but I've had a couple very reliable sources, people that have been on the show who had been fans, and they were like, that's brutal. That's
Oh, better.
That's all I know is it's apparently really.
Do people eat meat there? Because in like the regular Pokemon universe, they don't eat meat because like where does it come from? So it's.
I guess you would have to char a Charizard for a piece of meat, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's like those Tauros that are in the farm, like they're getting chopped up.
You want to know something really funny? While we're talking about this, you gave me a really good idea.
That's what I do.
I gotta write it down.
Oh, frig.
Now I'm curious as to what that idea is, but yeah, whatever. I'm very curious to see honestly too where you take this, where you take. My brain just had a moment.
Grimm Space?
Grimm Space. I wanted to flip it the other way around in my head for some reason. Yeah, Grimm Space.
Space Grimm?
Yeah, I wanted to say Space Grimm, which I mean would have technically worked as well. Grimm Space, Space Grimm. I think it would work either way. But that's not the way you went. You went Grimm Space. I'm curious to see what you do with all of this, man. Like it's a couple of very interesting projects that I'm aware of that are coming out that are interesting to see, whereas people that are doing their own thing that are really like, I'm gonna make a universe. I love to see that, because obviously, if you go back to when we were all like kids, if you wanted a universe, it just, you had two options. What do you think of that within the market space, as far as the fact that it's become what it has compared to what it was? You know what I mean? And obviously that was progressive, but if you look back at when it was, there were a couple smaller publishers and DC and Marvel, like pre-Image, and then Image happened and all that happened, and I mean, there were.
I think in order to do this, it requires a level of logistical planning and writing expertise that I don't think I had when I first started working in comics. And a lot of people try it right out of the gate. They say, I love Marvel, I love DC, they have a shared universe, I'm going to build my own shared universe. And they're very gung-ho about it, and they make all these plans, but they've never really made a comic before. And there's so many stumbles and slips and mistakes that you make along the way that they're like setbacks to building that universe, and they lose momentum, and it just doesn't work out. I've made a lot of mistakes so far. I've been doing this for a couple years. I put out a bunch of projects, and I'm at the stage now where I feel like I can put this all together. I can plan out all the pieces, put them into place, and execute them. And I just didn't have that wherewithal a while ago. So I think people need to be able to have the tools to build the universe before they just fulfill their dreams of doing it. And I didn't start out with the goal of eventually doing this. I kind of fell into it along the way. But I still think that it's difficult. It's not easy. I mean, look at Marvel. Look at how many people that they have working over there to trying to get the machine going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. Scott, you have anything else?
I think I asked all my questions.
All right. I just wanted to double check. Right? Frank, have you enjoyed yourself on this particular quest?
I did. It's been a barrel of laughs.
All right. Well, I hope you all out there did, right? All right. I want to let you all know, though, if for some reason you didn't enjoy Frank, I did that wrong. If for some reason you did,
No,
very
everybody
much,
always enjoys Frank.
Hey, I don't want to. Frank, I said it was PG.
I didn't say anything bad.
All right, fair enough, man. Innuendo, bro. But I guess whatever. It wasn't Pixar sufficient. All right. But if you haven't for some reason, or if you have for some reason really enjoyed, if you have enjoyed this interview, this quest with Frank, right? What I want you to do, see that man, like, she's OP. That was one of the worst setups that I've ever freaking had. Is send a reasonable woman.
You could absolutely do that.
Wait, no. Wait. That was the first. Y'all can check out all these pre-show questionnaires over at the Patreon if you want, by the way, for stuff we don't get into. But I guess we'll send him a reasonable female gargoyle, right? Right, with the old school plastic Freddy Krueger glove, right? A bunch of really fresh sushi, right? And a just box of Milky Way Midnights. All right. Now, the point I was apparently just really trying to get to quickly is, well, if you didn't like this, and if for some reason Frank annoyed you, it just fit better, it flowed better, and I wanted to just, whatever, it messed me up, right? Right, what I want you to do, right, is send him, why is it, this is why everybody's afraid of it, man, because it's the giant spider, because you're afraid of a giant spider, which is what that freaking clown turns into. All right.
I didn't know. No, I didn't say giant spider. Did I say giant spider?
Of being webbed in a cocoon by a giant spider. Here.
Yeah, I thought it was like just space spiders, but I guess it's all giant spiders. Yeah, that would be it. It didn't really scare me though. This spider in it. I don't know why. Because he was like he's a clown.
You know what? Here's the thing.
Spider's
Here's the thing. I'm gonna worsen it, right? I want you to send him a xenomorph, from the movie Aliens, to just take and put him in a nice one of them hard encased cocoons you just ain't getting out of. That alien's gonna turn on some mumble rap really, really loud, start force feeding you Brussels sprouts. Yeah.
I'm tuned out, man. I'm screwed.
Hey. Anytime is a good time to rock, and that would just rock you in a real terrible way, Frank, right? Beyond that, look, check out all the links in the description, right? You can check out all Frank's work. It's all there, as well as a bunch of other stuff, right? Beyond that, I just want you all to do 3 things. 1, give it that thumbs up, right? 2, get your comment code. 3, have a good night, y'all.
This has been the questionnaire.
Where's the link?
Thanks for checking out the questionnaire.
In the link below, yes?
I will drop it like it's hot.
That's another party.
It's cool, man. I love it.
The questionnaire. That is all.